voice agents are the future of AI automation. William Otley is talking about them, billionaires are talking about them, and Forbes is talking about them. But most business owners and AI agency owners are still walking past voice agents like it's 2024. In 2026, by not using voice agents, you're going to be leaving a bunch of money on the table. I've personally scaled my voice AI agency to over 5 figures per month, and today I'm here to give you the most straightforward path on learning about voice agents and setting up your very first one. Now, without further ado, I'm looking to provide as much value as possible here. Let's get straight into the video. And before we do, please make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. That really helps me out. Now let's actually get into it. And keep in mind that in this video, I'm actually going to be building out this entire voice agent with you from scratch. We're going to be going over every single component inside of n8n and ElevenLabs that actually helps you create that voice agent. And I'll be showing the hands-on process behind each of them. But before we get into building this out, let's go ahead and first understand voice agents as a whole. So what are voice agents? Voice agents are essentially AI that speaks. So in short, they combine voice generation, like ElevenLabs for example, transcription, meaning they turn the speech that they hear into text. That's why it's called speech to text. And they also use AI models, so like your regular GPT models, to go ahead and craft responses like a human would. And how they work is they're powered by system prompts, which are basically instructions that will guide their behavior, their responses, and give them examples. But what I really want to touch on today is just the efficiency that can be unlocked through automation. And this is helpful for business owners and AI agency owners alike, because business owners have to determine which department of my business can actually use voice agents the best. And agency owners have to determine what another business's department can benefit from. If you're a business owner, we actually do that ourselves. So we go ahead and we map out a 90-day step-by-step roadmap to how you can make your business more efficient and profitable using AI. We're actually giving the first 2 businesses to book an intro chat with us a chance at this completely free audit where we're just going to go through your entire system and give you this step-by-step guidance for completely free. So if that sounds like something you want, go ahead and grab your spot in the link in the description. But anyway, why are voice agents really efficient? Well, they cost around 12 cents per minute, and this is always changing. For example, ElevenLabs often costs around 10 cents per minute at this point, and some other platforms can be manipulated to go down to 9 cents per minute, or even cheaper. But even if we're looking at the maximum here, voice agents are working at around $7 per hour versus $20 to $25 per hour for humans which are doing repetitive tasks. And businesses often save 6 figures by just replacing multiple positions with 1 person plus voice agents. I've personally helped another business do that, and what happens to those 3 or 4 other people is that they aren't usually fired. They're just transferred to another place where they can do more efficient and productive work. And since voice agents can handle 10 calls at the same time, it makes sense to go ahead and cut out the repetitive work that humans do with something that's simply more efficient. And some ideal use cases for this, all of which in my time in voice AI I've went ahead and built. So this could be for something like an e-commerce store, appointment booking. This could be like a real estate agency which needs to book people inside of a calendar, as well as sales agent which can reach out and qualify people. And don't worry, this is the last slide. I'm just going to explain a very simple concept here. With building voice agents, which is what we're going to do right now, there's a front end and a back end. If you've noticed here in my Excalibur draw, I have 2 logos. One is for n8n, an automation platform you may or may not have heard of, and the other is ElevenLabs, which offers crazy good voice agents. And now, imagine you're in a theater. The front end is basically the actors that the audience sees. Those are the people that you clap for, the people you see, the people who are doing the main action that you actually experience. And then the back end is the stage crew working behind the scenes, doing all the lighting, setting up the costumes, that kind of stuff. And so similarly, with voice agents, the front end is the voice orchestration layer. This is what the callers actually experience. The voice of the agent, its behavior, as well as its conversational flow. And this is usually powered by a platform like ElevenLabs or Vappy. But today we're going to be using ElevenLabs. And now for the back end, we're going to have those invisible operations. Those are things that the regular caller doesn't see. This is where the actual calendar booking, the data processing, and all of that stuff happens. And I'm sure that you've heard of Make and Zapier, and most likely n8n, so you might already have an understanding of how this all ties in together. And I could keep talking about what voice agents do, and just explain a bunch of theory and toss a bunch of jargon. But in this case, I just want to give you the most straightforward walkthrough possible and get straight into the planning and building of this agent. So first of all, let's go ahead and pick a use case for this voice agent. Now, oftentimes, if you're an agency owner or a business owner, you'll actually have to determine which part of your business would actually benefit from voice agents. And the easiest way to usually go about that is to literally map out all of your phone calling processes. And this usually includes things like appointment booking, answering FAQs, customer support, and more. But that doesn't mean that another use case won't work. For the sake of this video, I was thinking to go ahead for something new. In the past, I've done several videos on my channel about businesses like real estate agencies. But today, just to show you kind of the thinking that I go through while building these voice agents, let's build one for an insurance agency. And now we have to plan it out. What inside of an insurance agency can be automated with a voice agent that will be helpful? Now, straight off the bat, answering FAQs is probably going to be the biggest ones. So this can be questions about the policy, the pricing, and more. Moving on, there can be things like appointment booking. So if you're deploying a voice agent just for the regular hotline of insurance agency, and then from there, a human would usually route to the appropriate department, you're probably going to have several cases. So one could be for answering FAQs and just general questions. Another one could be for appointment booking, and this could be for consultations maybe. And then we could have even more appointment booking. So for example, let's say when people have claims, maybe they crashed their car or something, they want to get it adjusted, they would go ahead and book an appointment for that. And then just kind of like a side case for payment issues, you would usually escalate this to a human. But if the voice agent is still the first line of support, you can actually use a feature that allows you to forward the call to a human, so that's convenient. But really, those are going to be our 4 different cases. It seems pretty straightforward for now. Let's go ahead and actually plan out how this will look like inside of ElevenLabs and n8n. So now let's start with FAQs. How are we going to handle them? So now let's actually go ahead and plan out each of these individual parts of it. So as you can see, I've made separate arrows leading to separate boxes. And I've already kind of started working on the answering FAQs part of it. So for the answering FAQs, ElevenLabs actually has a very nice built-in RAG system. Now, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, but really the purpose of it is much simpler than the name. It's just a more advanced system that allows you to search through a knowledge base, collect the correct information, and then pass it back. And so the way you essentially use it, as you will see when we shortly go ahead to build it out, is you upload a file with the knowledge, and I'm going to show you how to actually create pretty killer files with a custom AI I made to go ahead and do that. And you would upload it inside of your ElevenLabs voice agent, and it would pretty much do all of the work for you as long as you have the information organized and you're telling the agent to use it. Now for appointment booking, the consultations. Typically with insurance, initial consultations will probably last around 45 minutes. So I guess we can go ahead and keep it at those 45 minutes. I think that would be pretty reasonable. So we have those 45-minute long consultations, and essentially what we're doing it is we would need 2 tools. For those of you who aren't familiar with tools and voice agents, if you've heard of tools being used with regular AI agents, it's very similar. The voice agent calls certain tools to go ahead and complete certain actions. So for example, in this case, we would need check calendar as well as book calendar tools. And what those would do is pretty obviously, they would go ahead and check the calendar for availability and then book the calendar to block in that appointment or time slot. And we would need that. And really that is pretty much it. But I think since we are going to have 2 different appointment booking types, it might be easier to name them slightly differently. So we could name them, for example, consultation availability and consultation book. Those seem like very reasonable names. So we're going to keep it at that for now. Of course, we'll go into this in more detail as we start building it out. This is kind of just my logic from step 1. That's really what we're doing here. And over here on the side, I might go ahead and just write out a few things that we will need to collect. So each tool goes ahead and collects something called parameters. Parameters are essentially pieces of information that allow the tool to do what it does. So for consultation availability, if someone's asking for a time that they would like to book, that we would call that their preferred time. And we would then use that in our n8n backend system to go ahead and check the time inside of a calendar. So we would have preferred time for that. And that's really all you usually need for the consultation availability. Really, now the consultation book is going to be a bit more complex. For this, we can say something like requested time. We can say full name, email. And I know I'm going out of the boundaries here again. I'm going to adjust it in just a second. But regardless, it's requested time, full name, email. We can toss in the phone number. Well, you would usually get the phone number when you're actually deploying the agent. So we're not going to do that for the sake of this video, even though we're going to be testing it without actually calling it. But we would have requested time, the full name, the email, and then from there we would go ahead, have like a notes or maybe interest kind of parameter, which will go ahead and log their interest or put more details about them. So that would be very helpful. But really, I think that's all we would need for the consultation booking. Now, the appointment booking is going to be very similar. So now let's go ahead and move on to the appointment booking for the claims. Now, based on my experience, this can vary inside of insurance agencies, and it's pretty reasonable because with things like car accidents, you might have a small car accident, you might have a big one. But just to be general about it, let's go ahead and create an initial claim discussion session so we could have it be 30 minutes long. And in reality, it's pretty much the same as these. We would just change a few details. So I'm actually going to go ahead and, for the simplicity of our planning, copy this over to here because it's pretty much those are the same. I would remove the notes or interest. I would most likely put in parameters that are like the claim type as well as the notes, so that would be helpful. So for the tools, we would obviously also have something different. We can't book an appointment for a claim using the same tool that we use for the consultation. So we can say something like discussion availability or discussion book tool. And that is pretty much it for the appointment booking and claims. Let's not drag this any longer because I really want to get to the build myself. But as for payment issues, we would just simply have forwarding or escalation tool. And that's really all we need to know. We're just going to have to set up a few conditions for which the agent should go ahead and escalate people to. So this could be things like payment issues, this could be user is confused, etc. But now that we more or less have a decent plan over here, let's actually get started. And it's great that we have this plan, but one last thing we have to actually do is go ahead and actually plan out which calendar to use. Now, in mind with this, I just had the intention of using cal.com. We can use a Google Calendar, but because I want this to be as real world as possible, and Google Calendar is not often used by businesses like insurance agencies or maybe real estate agencies, cal.com would be more appropriate because it's a bit more complex and it's more similar to the real softwares that such businesses will be using. So for this, let's just go ahead and use cal.com. I'm going to copy this over to here. I'm going to copy that over to here, so we're going to be using cal.com. And besides that, we will most likely have a CRM or something that just goes ahead and probably logs the results of calls. And that's more of a simple setup, but really what we can go ahead and do is just add in kind of like a fourth branch over here. This is going to be our logging of an end of call report, so basically seeing how the call went. And then at the same time, we can probably go ahead and actually save leads into the CRM. So after every call, we can probably have an AI agent that goes ahead and looks through the summary, looks through the transcript, and then it can identify people who aren't currently clients, but people that are interested. And for example, either haven't booked an appointment yet and are not in the database yet. So even if they booked an appointment, even if they didn't, we're going to be logging them into a CRM. And this does make it a bit more complicated. But if you're looking to drive real impact with voice agents and those kind of systems, spending some extra time on a feature like this will just cost a few cents of money as well as your time, but could help businesses get way more opportunities. That is definitely something you must do. And if this all seems a bit complex or maybe confusing, don't worry, we're going to go through this step by step as I planned out here in even more detail so you can really see what we're doing. And so from here, the best plan of action is to really just go ahead and get set up on all of those platforms I mentioned and get ready to build this out without any hassle. So first of all, I'll be providing my links for those softwares in the description. So if you're looking to get a discount or a free trial on any of those services, you can go ahead and sign up with those links. The first on our list is going to be ElevenLabs. This is the voice AI platform where we are actually setting up those agents. So using my link, you're just going to go ahead and sign up to create an account. And once you've gone ahead and signed up, just make sure you're on the agents and not on the creative platform. And you're just going to go to the home page and you can stay here for now while we set up all of the other platforms. Next up on our list is going to be n8n. This is my favorite automation platform. And even though you can use it in a complex way, you can also use it in a very simple way. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So as I mentioned, go ahead and use my link. It offers you a 2-week free trial. But you're just going to go ahead and sign up. And once you've done that, just make sure you're on the home page. Don't worry about those numbers here. This is my n8n. You might not have any numbers here, but that really doesn't matter. Next up, you're going to go ahead and set up cal.com. Now, cal.com is going to be the calendar platform that we're going ahead and using to book in those appointments. So they have a very nice API. It's completely free, especially when compared to Calendly. And overall, it's just pretty amazing to use. So you're going to go ahead and sign up. As you can see here, I've created a new, fresh account. You're just going to connect your calendar. This can be your Google Calendar. And I know I mentioned that we wouldn't be using Google Calendar, but this is something different because cal.com is a bit more flexible and it's a bit more powerful and complex, like what you would be using with real businesses. And it connects to your calendar, so let's say your Outlook calendar, your Google Calendar, so it's actually a bit more different. And on default, when you sign up and set up all of your preferences, there are going to be 3 meetings over here. But we didn't get to setting 2 of our event types pretty soon, that being the consultation as well as the claim discussion for our insurance agency. But as long as you're on the homepage here and you've signed up, that's great. And the very last platform that we're going to be signing up to is Airtable. Now Airtable, it's like a more advanced Google Sheet. It's a bit more modern and it has some AI integrated, as you can see over here. It kind of functions as a CRM, so you can go ahead and store leads in here, you can store numbers, you can really store whatever you want, and it's just a pretty great place for doing it. So instead of using Google Sheet, which is a bit too simple and not used by many companies, we would go ahead and use Airtable because once again, it's a bit more complex. It's similar to the other CRMs you'd be using, so for example, Go High Level. But all I want you to do is just go ahead and sign up and you're on the same page as me over here. So now is the exciting part. Let's go ahead and start setting up our agents here. So back in ElevenLabs, the first step is going to be to go ahead to the agents section over here. You can choose one of the default templates. I really haven't used any of them, so I'm just going to start from blank for now. And it sends me over to this screen. It might seem like there are a bunch of different things here to set up, but let's just go step by step to really make sure that you're understanding this. Just name it something memorable. I'm going to name it Insurance Agent Course Build. You can set the language to English, and then at the same time you can go ahead to this voice section. Feel free to play around with any voices. I'm going to use a voice I have over here called Mark, but it doesn't really matter. ElevenLabs has a lot of good voices that you can use. This is just one of the many. After you've set up those 2 basic details, let's go ahead over here. So for the first message and for the system prompt, this is where we're going to have to go ahead and use one of my AIs. Since I'm not building this for a real business, we're going to have to make up a business and pretend that we're building it for that. And that's one of the reasons I went ahead and actually planned all of this out. So we're going to be able to take a screenshot of this and feed it into my AI over here. So this is the AI I use for all of my agents. And over here we can just start instructing it to go ahead and generate us a prompt. By the way, the app that I'm using on my computer is called WhisperFlow. It's something that allows you to go ahead and actually speak instead of typing, which makes everything much faster. So here's just how it works. Yeah, so we're going ahead and building out an insurance voice agent for an insurance agency. We're planning for it to have consultation booking as well as claim discussion booking. So essentially for the consultation booking, consultations will last. And what we want it to go ahead and do is have 2 tools. One of them is going to be called consultation availability, and one of them is going to be called consultation book. They're obviously going to be both checking the availability and booking in the 45-minute consultations. The consultation availability tool requires a parameter called preferred time. So that's going to be the preferred time that the person wants to book in. And then for the consultation book tool, we're going to have the following parameters. Number 1 is going to be requested time. So that's going to be the final time that they are requesting. The next one is going to be full name. After that, we will have an email parameter. And after that, we will have a notes parameter. So that's kind of summing up the interest of the person and giving us any notes about them. And then at the same time, we're going to have appointment booking for claims. So these are people who want to file claims and they want to discuss these matters. And these consultations will usually last 30 minutes. They're not really consultations, they're appointments. They will go ahead and last 30 minutes. And they will require pretty much the same parameters. One of them is going to be called discussion availability and the other is going to be called discussion book. They pretty much have the same parameters except the booking tool. And by that I mean the discussion book tool. That's going to have an additional parameter called claim type because we want to know the type of claim that the person wants to create. And then after that, we're going to have a forwarding or escalation setup or tool. And the agent is going to have to call that when the user is confused, is having payment issues, things that just need to be escalated to a human. And then the agent should also be able to answer FAQs. So for example, about the policy, the pricing, etc. And it's not going to have a tool for that. It's rather going to have a file that it can reference it from. And by the way, this is an auto insurance agency, so it does everything related to auto. It doesn't do anything else, it only does auto. And so you can now see that I went ahead and spoke everything I had. So now let's just go ahead and feed it to this AI, and it's going to start by thinking, but it's going to want to confirm a few details usually. Over here it's giving us the draft, but optionally we can go ahead and ask it to ask us some more questions so that it has a better idea of what it's doing. So right off the bat, I do see a few issues. This is something where with voice agent prompts, it's not something that you can do in just 5 or 10 minutes. Usually you have to work on the first draft, and then by the time that you're testing it, you have to go ahead and make some refinements. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and give it some more instructions. Yeah, so as I said before, answering the FAQs does not require a tool. The agent is going to have an internal file, and for now, remove the forward to human tool. Besides that, it is looking okay. Just make sure that in the tools section of the prompt, you're not just saying that it requires certain parameters, you're saying that it requires the collection of certain parameters one by one. And besides that, you can make the appointment setting and the booking sections a bit more specific. So for example, after you go ahead and call the consultation availability tool, it should go ahead and inside of the prompt you should instruct it to do things based on the availability of it. So if it's not available, it should go ahead and inform the user of that and then ask if they want to check another slot or give them some alternatives. And if it's available, it should ask if it can proceed to the booking, and from there just carry on with the consultation book tool. You can do the same with the section number 2 inside of the core task section. So for the claim discussion appointment, you can pretty much do the same. Just make sure that you are referencing the correct tools and everything is correct. And when you're saying contact details, just be specific. Say full name and email, but besides that, the prompt is pretty decent. And so over here, I've given it some more directions. We can go ahead and give that to it. And I was going to go ahead and make that initial refinement to the point where we are able to copy this entire prompt and paste it into ElevenLabs. And if you're following along with me, I will have all of the resources and the blueprints that I create linked in my school community. It's completely free. Use the link below. But what I would recommend is that you follow step by step with me. So even if you're not going to this AI to go ahead and generate this prompt, at least get the resources one by one and work with me as we go. So now let's just go ahead, copy this prompt, and over here we can paste it inside of the prompt section, and it's given the agent a pretty generic name, so we can call him something like Nick. And over here, let's just make a pretty generic message. Make sure to click save when you've done this. One more thing that my prompting agent actually did not ask about was the current time, and the current time is not something that the AI has access to by default. And so the way we're going to add this into here is inside of this context section, we're going to have to give it the current time. So I'm actually going to make it a separate section inside of the context section. And over here, what you can do is you can click on add variable and you can click on system time. It will go ahead and add it inside of here, and let's just quickly instruct it to. So I've given it that, and then over here you can also set up your time zone. I'm going to set my time zone, and then I'm going to click save again, so that's good. For the LLM, this is pretty important. So with ElevenLabs, I usually use something like GPT-5, or I use GLM 4.5 Air. It's relatively cheap and it's absolutely amazing. The difference in pricing isn't actually that large in comparison to GPT-5. So for the sake of this, let's just go ahead and use GPT-5. Next up, we're going to have the reasoning effort section, and this just basically controls how much reasoning the agent is going to do to figure out a problem or complete a certain task. So for this, we're going to set it to low. Appointment booking doesn't really require much reasoning on the agent side. For the temperature, we do want it to be a bit friendly and a bit creative. I usually find that a lower temperature will make the agent more accurate, and even if you want it to be creative, it won't really make the agent sound much different. So for the sake of accuracy, I'm going to set it to deterministic, which means that the temperature is going to be at 0. Moving on, we're going to have an agent knowledge base section. This is something really important, and I'm going to show you a second one of my AIs that I use this to make this process extremely quick. This is called the Inspire KB machine. And so what it does is it supercharges your voice agents with customized knowledge bases. I don't know why I said with customized and knowledge bases. I'm going to have to fix that, but regardless, what this does is it goes ahead and generates knowledge bases for you. So with this, what you can do is just give it your website link, upload a bunch of files about your company or a business that you're building this out for, and it's going to go ahead and return you a very nice and organized knowledge base. Because we don't have any company to base this off of, we're just going to go ahead and create a fake knowledge base using the prompt that we had over here. So I'm just going to copy it from here, and then I'm going to instruct the agent to create a long knowledge base inspired by the agent prompt. Because this is a demo prompt, go ahead and make the knowledge base extra long. You can make up any details because this is a fake brand, but just make sure that the knowledge base is long but also organized and optimized for me to use. So over here I've given it some instruction, and then in just a second it should create me a knowledge base. So on first glance this doesn't look exactly correct because it seems like it's following up from the prompt. We don't really want it to have more direction on how to use the tools, so that's something that we're going to have to adjust in just a second. So some adjustments I want to make is that this shouldn't really be a continuation of the prompt that I created. It can have some examples of conversations and best practices, but it should also include information about the policy, the services, as well as the history of the company and such details so that the agent has full context of the company and can answer questions. Also, please return the knowledge base in raw markdown code box format so that I can easily copy and paste it. So that's cool. It's going ahead and adjusting the prompt. And as you can see here, it's just going ahead and adding information about this company's services, its history, and other details. And this is something you would be doing with a real business as well. So with the files that you're uploading or the website that you're providing of the company, it can go ahead and extract that information to create this very specific knowledge base. And so I'm just going to copy it, and inside of the document I'm going to paste it in. The easiest way to do this is actually to just paste in the text. So the way I did it is I clicked on add document, and then I clicked on create text to then go ahead and paste this in. And for the text, I can just copy this top heading. I can name it driver share auto insurance knowledge base, and then I can create the text. So now I can click save, and our agent knowledge base and system prompt are officially set up. Next up, we can go down to the tools section. There are two different types of tools. They're going to be built-in tools into ElevenLabs, as well as custom tools. We're going to be using both types. So some internal tools that we can enable are going to be end call, because the agent needs to know when to end the call, and then also have the skip turn tool. So if anybody says, hey, I need to grab some of my details, could you give me a minute? It's going to go ahead and wait for them. And also we're going to turn on the transfer to number tool. So this is actually going to be named transfer to number every time. So we're going to have to first go back and change this inside of our system prompt. So let's go ahead and change every instance of forward to human to transfer to human. So I'm going to change it inside of the tools section, inside of the specific section. From here, that really should be it. What we're going to add in the notes section, just so it has extra knowledge about the fact that I should call this tool, is that we can say always call the transfer to number tool when the user is confused, frustrated, or has a payment question. So we're going to click save on that, and from here we can go ahead and actually set it up. Here we can add the description for the tool. So I just told it when to escalate to a human. And then over here we can also add in a human transfer rule. So for this, just for the sake of having it, we're not really going to be testing the human transfer rule, because all of the testing that we're going to be doing is going to take place on the ElevenLabs platform and not through a phone number. So here I'm just going to toss in another number that I own. And for the condition, I'm just going to copy what I set up here. I'm going to tell it, you should use this to escalate to a human when the caller is frustrated, confused, or wants to make a payment. And then from here, you can go ahead and click on save, and that tool is enabled. And over here we have 3 tools now set up, and we've already nailed down 2 of the functions, that being the FAQ answering as well as the escalation to a human. Now we can go ahead and start setting up those custom tools so we can book those appointments. And over here is the place where we're going to have n8n come in. For these custom tools, these are going to be the tools that we planned out earlier. So this includes the consultation availability, the consultation book, as well as the discussion availability and discussion book tools. So in total, we're going to have 4 appointment booking tools that we're adding inside of here. So why don't we just go ahead and start off with the consultation availability tool. When you click on add tool, it's actually going to have 2 more types, webhook or client. Just click on webhook for this and name it consultation availability inside of here. And the descriptions for these tools are going to be pretty straightforward. And as you can see here, it's just going to be something like use this tool to book a user in for a 30-minute consultation, collecting all necessary details. Down here is where we're going to get into some of the more technical parts of it. I want you to pay attention to those 2 spaces, specifically the method as well as the URL. So the method is kind of what the tool is actually doing. So is it getting something, is it posting, is it putting, patching, or deleting? Now this is something that has to do with HTTP requests, but really all you need to know here is that the get method will retrieve data from somewhere and that the post method will send data somewhere. So for this we will need post because we're sending it to n8n, and then n8n is performing that appointment booking there. So it needs ElevenLabs to give it that information. And the URL part is where n8n is going to come in. So inside of n8n over here, you're going to create a new workflow for this, and you're going to go ahead and name this something like ElevenLabs Insurance Agent Course Build Out. And here we're going to start by adding a webhook. You'll recall that just recently we went ahead when adding the tool, we said that it would be a webhook tool, and this is exactly what we're using here. And as you can see here, this also has a get method involved. So if you click inside of here, you're going to see the HTTP method, and we want this to match what ElevenLabs is getting. So we're going to set it to post, and over here you'll see a webhook link that we can copy. For simplicity reasons, we're going to simplify the path. So the path is just essentially the ID of the webhook. I want to name this something simpler, so I can say something like insurance course ElevenLabs agent. And as I change that, you'll see that this also changes. And over here, instead of using the test URL, which can get a bit annoying when we're testing it, we're going to use the production URL. So you're going to switch over to that, and you want to make sure that you're copying it. So copy that, and then go back into ElevenLabs and paste in the link here. Don't worry about any of these details. These are pretty much extra and you don't really need them, but there are just a few more things in each tool that we have to set up. So for the header, this is something we're going to need. Header is basically something that we can also send in the results that we're going to be giving to n8n. And for this, I'm going to call it tool name. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be sending all 4 tools to the same n8n workflow and webhook URL. And we want to go ahead and differ between all of those 4 tools. So the tool name is literally going to be the tool name we add over here, which is consultation availability. This will make more sense as we start testing it out, but just keep it as is for now. And from here, we get to the body parameters. As I said before, each tool is going to have its own parameters. And for the description for this consultation availability tool, I've instructed it to collect the preferred time of the user, or the caller I should say, in this specific format. And this specific format is exactly what n8n wants, is exactly what cal.com wants. So this is just going to make it even easier. And the properties are actually the individual parameters that are going to be collected. So in this case, the parameter was preferred time. We're going to mark it as required because how else are we going to check the availability if we don't have their time? And this is just going to be a very simple description. In fact, I'm going to copy it from here and paste it inside of here, the preferred time of the caller in this specific format. And over here, this is actually pretty much all you need for this tool. You're going to go ahead and add the tool, and over here you should already see it pop up. For simplicity reasons, what we can go ahead and do is actually duplicate our consultation availability tool to make it the discussion availability tool. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'm not sure if I can duplicate it from here. Usually you would go ahead to the tools section, and then for this you would click on and the way we're going to duplicate it is we're going to click on this edit as JSON button. This is going to give you something that looks like code, but we're just going to copy it, and then we're going to X out and create a new tool and create a new webhook tool. So I can go here and I can now click on edit as JSON here and then paste it inside of here. And there are only a few other details that we're going to have to change. So I've added the tool for now, and here I can go ahead and make some simple changes. So instead of consultation, I'm going to say discussion, but now it's also 45 minutes, so that's going to be something different. For the tool name, we're also going to have to change this to discussion availability. The body parameter is going to remain the same, and this is going to remain the same too. So we're going to click on save here, and we've already set up our second tool. So now with half of our appointment booking tools set up, let's go ahead and add the third one. So I'm going to click on add tool again, click on webhook, and it's actually going to pop in the same JSON that we had before. And for simplicity reasons, I think we can also go ahead and add this tool as well. And from here, we're just going to go ahead and adjust it, except now it's going to be a lot more different. So if I go back into where we planned this out, the tool is going to be called consultation book. And what I'm noticing I had wrong before is that in the description of the availability tools, I said that it should use this tool to book a user in for that consultation. And that might be a bit misleading, so we're just going to go ahead and change that back. So I've changed it to say use this tool to check the availability of a preferred time of a caller for a 30-minute consultation. Now I'm going to copy this in and do the same over here, except change the details back to 45 minutes and say insurance claim discussion instead. So this is good from here. I'm pretty lucky I noticed that. It's great that I managed to notice that in time before we had any issues with the testing, but it's something that happens and you should always be ready to go back and be checking on any mistakes you may have. So now that we're back and setting up the consultation book tool, let's go ahead and adjust the description. So I've changed the description to say this. We're going to be booking them in and collecting the following details that we're going to go ahead and mention down below in a sec. But here in the header, once again, change this to consultation book. We don't want any duplicates because that will make everything confusing. And inside of the body parameters, we're going to change these few details. So we're going to instruct it to collect the requested time, full name, email, as well as any notes about the caller. And this sounds a bit weird, so I'm just going to remove that and paste it inside of here. That looks better to me. And let's just fill in the parameters here. And so I hope now you're starting to see that setting up these tools is more about correctly instructing the voice agent how to call them and what they do, rather than typing in any code or anything complex like that. But for the properties, I'm just going to go ahead and write all of them out, and they don't have to be complex. For the email, I'm just going to mention the email address of the user. For the full name, I'm just going to once again say the full name of the user. And for the notes, this is just going to be an overview of the caller's needs, interests, and more. And we're going to make this 2 to 3 sentences long, just so our calendar bookings are a bit more descriptive. So now checking this over, this looks pretty good to me. So we can go ahead and click on save. And what we're going to do once again is click on edit this as JSON, copy this over here, X out, and then add in a tool, and then add in a new webhook tool, pasting in the JSON we had before inside of here again. And this just really simplifies it because I don't have to go ahead and track those parameters in anymore. Now I'm realizing that one more thing where I messed up was in the description of these tools. So if we go back to my plan, I originally had the intention of making the consultations 45 minutes long and the claim appointments to be 30 minutes long, so I actually swapped them. But this is no big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and change the numbers in the descriptions of the tools. So instead of 30 minutes for the consultation book, it's going to be 45. And for the consultation availability, it's also going to be 45 minutes. The discussion availability is going to be 30 minutes long, so let me change it to that. And the discussion book is already pretty much correctly set, except I need to say that this is a claim discussion and not a consultation. And also it's going to be collecting one more detail than the other booking tool was. This is going to be the claim type, because we need to know the type of claim that this is. For the header, as usual, you're going to change this to discussion book, and anywhere you see consultation, you're pretty much just going to change it to discussion. All of the parameters are the same, but as I mentioned before, the only new one we're adding is the claim type. And the claim type is just going to be the type or classification of the claim of the caller. We're going to click save on this, and now we have officially set up all 4 of our tools for our ElevenLabs agent. Just make sure you're clicking on save, because you definitely don't want to lose any of this. And now that we've wrapped up with probably the most tedious process of creating this voice agent, we can go ahead and get to the more fun parts of it. So inside of n8n, we currently just have this one webhook. We don't have it connecting to any calendar modules or anything else, which is a bit of a bummer because we can't do anything yet. But the way we're going to get to the system that we're eventually going to build out is by first activating this workflow, and from here we can actually go ahead and test this agent. So I'm going to test it, and I'm going to try to get it to trigger one of the calendar tools so that our webhook is called. If I go into my executions right now, you're going to see no executions of the workflow because we haven't actually activated the webhook just yet. But as I'm in the call, you'll notice that it goes ahead and executes the workflow. I'm actually going to just switch to chat mode. This is going to be much easier to test it. So I'm going to say something like, hey, it's going to respond to me. Then let's just say I want to book a consultation. Now I'm just going ahead and leading it to check the availability for a time, essentially manipulating it to go ahead and do that and waiting until it calls the workflow. So it says that it's checking the availability. I haven't noticed anything just yet inside of the n8n workflow. Oh, here it is. So that's perfect. Really, we can go ahead and end the chat here. I don't need it for now anymore. And the way we're going to work with the data that we just got into this webhook inside of n8n is copy it to the editor. The editor is just a fancy name for the place where you're building out the workflow. And over here is something awesome we can do. We're going to use a switch node to route the workflow depending on what tool was called. So as you can see here, so if we go ahead and look through all of this complex language, which even I don't understand here, you're going to notice a header called tool name. Now that header is what we were adding before. So in essence, what you can do is you can drag the tool name header that we had on the side over here inside of this space. And here we can set different conditions. So if this is going to be equal to consultation availability, which it is right now, I can go ahead and create a separate branch for that and even rename it. So I can say something like check availability for consultation. And if I execute this again, you're going to see that it goes along this path, but not because it's the only path, but because the condition matches. So we can go ahead and do this for all of the other ones. So I'm just going to create 3 more conditions, and they're going to be pretty much the exact same in nature, except for the fact that the tools are going to be different. So if this is going to be consultation availability, we could have a consultation booking here. And in here, we could have discussion availability and discussion book. And what you're going to do, just for the sake of your own organization and understanding, is turn on something called rename output. This isn't going to change anything, but it's going to allow you to see what data flows in which direction. And at this point, I'm going to have 4 of these different directions. And if I click on execute workflow again, it's still going to go to the check availability route. But now we're just going to slowly be building all of the branches out. Now that I have the check availability for the consultation, I can go ahead and actually start building out the calendar path. course, as I discussed before, this is going to involve cal.com as our calendar. So at this point, you can actually go back and log in inside of it if you haven't yet. And over here, you will see a bunch of different event types. We're going to need only 2 for this, so I'm going to delete just one of them. And here we're going to be able to create each event. So if we started with the check availability for consultation branch, it only makes sense to first create a consultation event and work on it. So I'm going to name this something like driver sure consultation. The description, the URL, those details really don't matter. Of course, you can customize your link. For me, it's a bit weird because it took my initials and then it added a bunch of different characters, but that's really not my focus right now. My focus right now is to go ahead and create our first booking and book using cal.com. So we really shouldn't mind the other details before we actually get it work. This is going to be the event duration. And for this, because the consultation does last 45 minutes, you're just going to adjust it to 45 minutes. I obviously can't guarantee that it's going to be the same for every business. Usually it's going to be something like what cal.com has on default. So it's 5 days a week. But just for the fun of it, let's go ahead and customize it a bit. Instead of making it 9 to 5, I'm going to change it to be 8 to 6. And for convenience purposes, I'm going to copy this time over to all of the other weekdays and click on save. So I'm going to go back from here. After you've adjusted the availability, you can go back to the actual event. Now that we're good on this end, we can go ahead and move on to the limits. Once again, this is going to be customized for every business. And what those details mean is they're just customizing the availability even further. So the before event and the after event, those are just going to be buffer times that you can have in between each event. So if a business wanted breaks in between consultations, maybe they have one employee doing all of them, they could have 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after, or something like that. Also with a minimum notice of 2 or 5 hours, meaning that somebody can book when something is only 2 hours away. But really, you're going to keep this the same. I'm not going to customize this. Now we can move on to the advanced part of this. Hopefully you already have one of your calendars connected here. For me, it's a Google Calendar, which makes it very simple. Here's where we would adjust the booking details. In ElevenLabs, we were collecting a few details, including the person's full name, their email address, their interests, as well as their requested time. So we're going to save that. And for the other fields, we're just going to go ahead and adjust them. This actually seems very conveniently set up for us. But we're going to turn on some fields like the reason for rescheduling, as well as the adding guests. We're going to keep this additional notes because, as I mentioned before, we were collecting the notes about the person. So now we're collecting their full name, their email address, and their notes, and that looks correct to me. From here, you can click save on this event, and we should be good to go for the consultation. So now we can move on to the API. So right now I'm just going to Google cal.com API docs, and I'm going to click on this link, which is going to take me to the API docs. For those of you who are not familiar with what an API is basically something that allows you to go ahead and, using something like a JSON or something similar to a code, go ahead and perform an action in another app. So in this case, we're using n8n in combination with the cal.com API to go ahead and create a booking. It's going to make more sense as we get into it, so let's do that right now. There are going to be a bunch of API methods that we can go ahead through here, but you're going to scroll about to the middle of the list to this booking section. This is what we're really going to need. We're going to be using the create a booking method, which I'm going to open in a separate tab. And then after that, you're going to keep scrolling down until you get to the slots section. We are going to be using the get available time slots for an event type here. So now that we have those 2 different endpoints open, and we're going to need to create a booking after, because right now we're just checking the availability. We're just going to be using this right now. Now there are a few details that we will need before we actually initiate those API calls. And for that, you're just going to need to go back to your cal.com. You're going to go to your settings. From the settings, you're going to go down to the developer section and to the API keys. And here you're going to create your first API key. An API key is basically like a password that allows us to verify that we're actually doing something. So if API keys didn't exist, we wouldn't be able to verify if it's actually us that are going ahead and making a booking. So once again, you can name this something like insurance agent demo 11labs, and you can set it to do whatever here. I'm just going to set mine to expire in 7 days. So I'm going to click save on it, and it's going to give me my API key. It's important to note that you're not going to be able to view it again once you close this screen. So you're going to go ahead and copy it. Back in n8n, you're going to click on this plus sign so that we can extend this branch of the workflow, and you're going to search for HTTP requests. An HTTP request is basically what goes ahead and performs those API calls or those bookings. And we're going to go step by step on how to set this up, but first let's go ahead and set up this authentication field over here. You're going to click on it here, and then you're going to click on generic credential type, and inside of this generic auth type, you're going to click on bearer auth. All of these names for auth or API are just different ways of verifying your API call. and this is one of the many of them. And inside of here, you might have other bearer authentications. So VAPI also uses a very similar method to cal.com, but you're going to click on create a new credential. You can name this something like cal.com account 11labs insurance demo, and you're going to paste in your bearer token inside of here and then click save. Next up, what we're going to do is step by step read through the docs and set up this tool. So back in this HTTP request node, let's just name it something simple like get availability for consultation. And here the easiest way to set up the initial parts of our workflow is to go ahead to the right here. You're going to notice something called a curl. A curl is basically something that you can copy, go inside of n8n and import the curl. And then you can paste it inside of here. And then after that, it's actually going to set up some of the fields for you. So that's pretty awesome. Back in the get available times, we're going to have to set up a few other details. There's going to be a lot of information here, but you can scroll past it all the way to this section called headers. This is where we're going to get the Cal API version, so you can just copy it here. It's going to be 2024-0904. And down over here, you'll see that there's already a space for us to paste in this version, which is going to be the value. So you can remove all of this and then paste it inside. And there are 4 ways to get those available slots for an event type. The first one is probably the one we're going to need. So this is going to be by the event type ID. If you go back to cal.com and click into the event we just set up, in the link you're going to see that there's an event ID. And this event ID is actually going to be the 7-digit number that you've created here. Cal.com is a bit confusing, but we can nonetheless go ahead and set this up. So it says over here that we need to have v2/slots and a question mark with the event type ID. So now I'm going to also put in event type ID inside of here just to make it look. And I think what we actually need to do here is remove this and instead paste in our own ID and instead paste in the event ID we had, which is the number that I was talking about. And next up, what we can do is set up the start and end times. So if you're following along with me, you're probably going to have a link like this. Now it's saying that we need to have certain query parameters, so the start time as well as the end time. So we're going to go into the send query parameters and turn that on. And we're going to have 2 query parameters called start and then another one called end. And the way we are going to get these start and end times is by using the start time that ElevenLabs gave us and then transforming it. So if we look back through here, we're going to see that ElevenLabs already gave us a time over here, and this is going to be the preferred time or the preferred start time. So we have that set up already. And because consultations will typically last 45 minutes, what we can do to determine the end time of it is to just add 45 minutes to the start time and then use both of those times to go ahead and check. So what you're going to do here is search for the date and time node, and you're going to click into that and you're going to select the add to date. After this, you're going to scroll down to your data over here and you'll see the preferred time of the body. This is what we were setting up in ElevenLabs before as well. So you can go ahead and paste it into here, the date to add to. And in this case, we would be adding 45 minutes, so we can go ahead and do that. And for the output field name, we can call it something like end boundary consultation. So now let's go ahead and see if it's going to work. So that ran correctly. We can connect it back to over here. And as we are testing it, you can actually start pinning the data. This will save us a lot of time because we won't have to execute those nodes again. And it's just using the same details to perform new executions. So over here, let's try checking the availability. For the start time, it's going to be this preferred time. And then for the end time, it's going to be the end time we see over here. And we're going to put it into here. One concern I do have is that this is in different formats. So as you can see, here it's 15 o'clock, but here it's 10:45 with a 5-hour offset. So that might be a bit of a problem, but there's only one way to find out, and that is to actually run it. So it's giving me an issue over here already, and it's giving me these details. So clearly I did something wrong with the link over here. Let's go back to cal.com to see what went wrong. And after taking a small dabble back into the Cal docs, I figured out the issue. So before I set it up incorrectly, I thought that the event type ID was essentially a placeholder that we had. So before I had this, and we were actually supposed to put in the event type ID equals the ID over here so that it could actually go ahead and correctly retrieve the availability. So if I execute the workflow again, you'll see that it runs successfully. And by saying that the status is equal to success, this means that the slot is available, which tells us that we can go ahead and book for that time. But this is actually not going to be enough for the ElevenLabs agent. It's great that we got this information from cal.com, but the way we're actually going to pass it back to the ElevenLabs agent, and I made it seem complex at first, but we're going to search for webhook and we're going to click on the respond to webhook node. So because this is a post request, we're sending data to n8n so that it can do things like get the availability. We then have to respond to the webhook or send the information back to ElevenLabs. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add that node, and in the respond with, we're going to select the text type. So what this is going to allow us to do is send back the information to the ElevenLabs agent and tell it whether the time is available. So over here I can also add some words that I wanted to go ahead and have access to. So I can say something like status of the time slot is equal to success. And this is a variable, meaning that if it wasn't available, it would say something like failed or unavailable. So this is a very convenient way that we can let the agent know what is happening. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and rerun the test call so we can see if it can go ahead and check our availability again.
Hey there, this is Nick from DriverSure Auto Insurance. How can I help today?
Yeah, hey Nick, I was looking to schedule a consultation.
Happy to help with that. Do you have a specific day and time in mind for your 45-minute consultation? Or would you like me to check openings for you? And may I have your full name to get things started?
Yeah, so my name is Azim, and a time that I was thinking was tomorrow at 4 p.m. I think is a good time.
Thanks, Azim. I hit a quick system hiccup while checking tomorrow, Monday at 4 p.m. Are you in Eastern Time? Also, could you share your last name? I can retry that exact time. Or would you like me to look at nearby options like 3:30 or 4:30 that afternoon?
So the reason we ran into a call error right now is because we didn't set something up in the original webhook node. See, in the original webhook node, we must actually say how we are going to respond. If we're saying that we're going to respond immediately, but we're using a response to webhook node at the end, that kind of contradicts what we're saying. So we have to set this to say using respond to webhook node. So let's click on save, and then over from there, let's call the agent again and see if now.
Hey there, this is Nick from DriverSure Auto Insurance. How can I help today?
So now that we've changed that, let's go ahead and see if it's able to go ahead and check the availability again.
Hey there, this is Nick from DriverSure Auto Insurance. How can I help today?
Yeah, hey Nick, I was looking to schedule a consultation for 4 p.m. tomorrow. My name is Azim.
Great news, that 4 p.m. slot tomorrow is open. Would you like me to reserve that 45-minute consultation for you? If yes, can I get your full name as it should appear on the book?
So that's great. You managed to go ahead and do it, as you can see, in just under a second, so that was pretty fast. But from this point onward, what we can go ahead and do is actually start to go ahead and build out the book consultation route. So over here, I'm just going to switch to chat mode for faster convenience, and I'm going to ask it to now book a slot for me. So now over here, I've told it that I want to book that appointment, and if I go into the executions, over here is going to tell me that it has went ahead and succeeded. So even though it told me that it succeeded, we didn't actually have a route, but that isn't really a problem because by the end, it's going to know that it's able to go ahead and book these consultations. And right now, we actually have the data to work with, so we can start to go ahead and do that. Now, very similarly to the checking of availability, we're going to use a very similar setup to this. So what I'm actually going to do is copy these three nodes, and I'm going to paste them inside of here because after all, they're going to be very similar. I'm going to pin this data here as well. Right now it's not possible, and I'm going to connect this branch to here. As you can see here, when we click inside of this date and time node, it's going to show the preferred time as red. And that's because in the body, we no longer have the preferred time, but instead we have the requested time. So I can go ahead and fill that in, and it's going to have that available. So as last time, I want to go ahead and add 45 minutes. It's going to succeed with that. And now what we have to do is go ahead and create the booking for the consultation. And this is going to be a bit different if we go back to the Cal API docs. It's going to have a much bigger curl, but this is also going to be useful because it's very easy to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and copy this curl request, and inside of the import curl, we're going to go ahead and paste this in and once again import it. For the authentication, it's going to reset your authentication, so just once again make sure that you're going to the generic credential type, and since you already have the API key saved, you can just select it without setting it up again. For the Cal API version, let's go ahead and put that in. This is going to be the version. It's a bit different, so you've got to be careful when you're doing this. So I'm going to paste that inside of there. And for the JSON content, this is what's really going to be important for us to do. We can confidently go ahead and remove most of this information here. So all the way up to the event type ID, you can go ahead and remove that. It's going to go ahead and give you some issues, because we are removing a large chunk of the JSON. So usually it's going to be as simple as a comma fix. But what we want to start doing here is filling it in with the correct information. So I'm going to convert this into an expression just to make it simpler for me to see. And before we do anything, let's just make sure to wire it back up so that we can access the information from the last nodes. For the start time, as usual, I'm going to just have the start time I had before. So I would go ahead and drag this over into here, make sure it's between the two quotes. And over here, we're going to have to start filling in some information. You will notice that it doesn't have an end time here, which actually makes it easier for us because it already knows that if an event is for 45 minutes, then it doesn't really need the end time. So we can most likely go ahead and actually remove this node completely because we won't really need it. Down here, we're going to start filling in all the information here. So we can start going ahead and putting in the information here. You're just going to drag all of the appropriate variables into the correct places. We're not collecting a phone number for this, so you would remove it. For the language, we would be using English, so that's EN. And then for the booking fields responses, this is where it's going to get interesting because we have to go ahead and be very precise with how we're doing this. So for the booking fields responses, the first one we're going to have is going to be the notes. And the notes is also a variable that we have collected, so we can go ahead and toss that into here. And for the event type ID, we're just going to, once again, paste in the event type ID that's inside of our calendar link here and paste it here. So now let's go ahead and see if we're able to book in this appointment. So it's going ahead and it seems as if it has booked it in correctly. So if I go back to my cal.com and go into bookings, it's going to show me that I've successfully booked it. So that's absolutely awesome. We've already built out the first stage of our booking. So now we can go ahead and attach the response to webhook node again. And obviously this is going to be different now. So what we can do here is come up with something a bit more creative. So we can say something like consultation with the name of the person who is attending for the specific time is equal to success. So this will essentially tell the agent that the booking has been successful. So we can click on save from here. And a cool trick in n8n that you can use is this paintbrush tool. So this goes ahead and actually tidies up your workflow to make it look a bit more organized. But now let's do another test chat with our agent and see if it's able to go ahead and book us in. So I'm going to end the old chat I had and start a new chat. So I'm going to go ahead and give it all of the information it needs just to go ahead and manipulate it into kind of going ahead and making that booking. So it's going ahead and telling me that it's available. And ElevenLabs sometimes does this where it sends two messages at once. This doesn't happen in a conversation, but only in the chats. But regardless, it's not a large problem for us. So let's say something like, I want to discuss affordable auto insurance, and then it should go ahead and start booking us in. I will check the executions for this. The checking of availability has been successful as it seems. Yep. So it went along this route and the booking failed. So now let's go ahead and see how that went. So it says that there has been a bad request. So let's go ahead and check that out. So user either already has booking at this time. So this is an apparent error. Obviously, when I was testing it before, I went ahead and made that booking, but subconsciously I forgot to remove it. And so because of that, we can't double book, so it gave me this error. But something else that I'm noticing is that when I'm asking it to book me for 4 p.m., it goes ahead and books me in for 11 a.m. And this makes sense because cal.com is based on the UTC time. So that is just going to be the Greenwich Standard Time. So if I'm in New York and my time difference with London is 5 hours, it's actually going to go ahead and push back my requested time 5 hours. So what we have to go ahead and do is adjust this to make sure that it's doing everything correctly. And so usually how cal.com works is it relies on the letter Z. The letter Z basically represents UTC time. So if I were to go ahead right now and try booking this, it should theoretically go ahead and book me in for that time. And so now we have to figure out a way that will allow us to correctly go ahead and book in for the correct time. And cal.com often relies on offsets, so those are things that you can add at the end of each time to designate the time zone that you're doing this. So if I add a -500 and go ahead and test it out, let's see if it correctly notes that. It seems like it doesn't, and it tells me that it must be a valid ISO date. And if it gives me an error on that, the issue must be something else. And so over here, the solution I figured out is actually before having these calendar steps, we have to have something that goes ahead and matches the time for the UTC time before we actually go ahead and give it to cal.com. And after dabbling some more, I figured out the issue for this setup. Essentially what we have to do is, since I'm passing in my requested time for the American time zone, I have to go ahead and add 5 hours to it so that it matches the UTC time, and then after that it gives me the correct time. So for example, like in my last conversation when I was looking to book a consultation for tomorrow at 4 p.m, that's going to be 16 o'clock American time. So we have to go ahead and add 5 hours to it using a code node so that it matches the UTC time, which would be 21 o'clock. So we can use this code node to go ahead and do that. Now if you're from a different time zone than me, what you would go ahead and do is just take this code node, you would give it to ChatGPT, and you would go ahead and ask it to change it under your time zone. So if in my case, I'm trying to take the American time and add 5 hours to it to obtain the UTC time, for you it might be subtracting an hour from Berlin time to get to the UTC time. But in any case, I'm going to have to go ahead and adjust this. So if I click into it and expand it, I'm now going to have to change the start time and input this time. Now for the switch node, because we now have something in between the original webhook and this calendar node, that being the code node, we can't just reference it like this anymore. We have to give it the specific node name and then go ahead and do it like that. So you're just going to go ahead and remap the same variables so we can go ahead and book that in. And now if I test it once more by executing the workflow, it should go ahead and give me a positive result. So here it's creating the consultation booking. Now it has been booked, and if I go back into cal.com, I'm going to see that it has now popped up for the 4 p.m. that I had originally requested. And because we changed this for the booking, and we still haven't changed it for the checking availability, we're going to have to do that as well. So I'm going to copy this exact code node for this same route, and I'm going to put it in the middle of the switch node and the date and time. And it's important to note that this is going to require a different key. The key is essentially the value of a variable. And for the check availability route, since it's preferred time instead of requested time, you would go ahead and type in preferred instead. And so we would do the same thing for the checking of availability. We would just change a few things because there is a different variable passing through. But I'm going to link all of these resources in my free school community, so if anything, you can go ahead and access the code for the code nodes down there. Just make sure that you're changing this for your time zone so that it gives you the correct time. So now that both of these ends are set up, we can actually go ahead and perform really the same process for the checking of availability and the booking of the claim discussion appointment as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over here, and then at the same time I'm going to copy all of these nodes and paste them for the bottom as well. These are going to be very similar setups, so we can really just go ahead and copy paste them and just adjust the details of each. So right off the bat, without any testing, and so the first thing that we're once again going to have to do is create a new event. We could call this the driver shirt claim insurance claim discussion. And so you would set up the first details for this. We're going to leave the duration at 30 minutes because, as we had planned before, these insurance claim discussions are going to be 30 minutes long. For the availability, we're going to leave it the same because we're scheduling on the same calendar. Now, for many use cases, you're going to have individual calendars for each type of booking, and that's totally fine. You would just go ahead and select a different calendar to add this to, and it wouldn't be an issue. Besides that, we're going to go into this advanced section, and once again, we're just going to set up the different fields for this. So for the name, it's once again going to be the full name. For the email address, you can leave it as it is. For the additional notes, we're going to adjust this to be called notes. We're going to turn off the reason for reschedule and the adding of guests. And one more thing we're going to add is going to be the claim type. This is because we had it as a planned parameter before, so it only makes sense to go ahead and include that in our booking as well. So we're going to make this field required as well, and we're going to click on add. And from here we can go ahead and click on save. So from here we can work on the n8n workflow to continue to book this. First, of course, we're going to need to place a test call so that it activates our check availability route. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and switch to chat mode again, and then I'm going to start the conversation. So now we've successfully tested it. Once again, I manipulated it into calling that tool to check if the time is available at 2 p.m. But now that n8n has successfully called it, we can go ahead and copy it to the editor once again. And as you'll see here, the check availability route for the insurance claim discussion has now been booked. So from here we can feed in pretty much the same information, and we should see it work because it operates the same way as this code node did. In fact, it's just a duplicate of it. So now if we execute the workflow, we see that time again. And now if we calculate the end time, that is also going to work. And so as you can see here, I'm testing it node by node to first see if the data is being passed along correctly. And only then are we going to go ahead and actually adjust the calendar. And so for this event type, you're once again going to copy the ID inside of the link of it. And you're going to replace the other one you had with this one. Just make sure that for the authentication, you're once again clicking on generic credential type, clicking on bear auth, and then going ahead and using the cal.com, and then using the cal.com bear authentication. So now if I go ahead and run this, it should go ahead and return this availability, and it does say that the slot is available. So now that we've tested that part, now we can place one of our final test calls to go ahead and see if it can book me in. And here I can actually just continue with the same chat before. So we can go ahead and do that. I'll say yes, and then I'll just make sure that the data is not pinned. And if I click on save, I'm not sure if it's gonna run it in time, but it looks like it checked its availability, so that seems good. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it some details about what happened. Now let's see if it goes ahead and books me in. So if I check the execution logs, it hasn't arrived yet. And over here we see that it has succeeded, so it went ahead and created the booking. If I go back into my bookings, it shows over here that the 2 p.m. slot has been went ahead and booked. However, what I forgot to do is actually adjust the event ID of it. And so now I have to go ahead and adjust it. And at the same time, we haven't yet adjusted this node because we have to calculate the end time by adding 30 minutes since we're not adding 45 anymore, just because this is a 30-minute long discussion. So now the setup over here has errored out. There seems to be an issue, so let's go ahead and look into that. Over here it says that we forgot to include the claim type, which is totally correct. So we have to actually go ahead and include it here. So besides the notes, I have to go ahead and include the claim type. And the claim type comes here through the body, so we can just go ahead and drag it inside of here. So that's great, and if we go ahead and try, we can safely say that this branch of it is working and that the calendar setup has already been complete. So now just to verify that it works in full, let's go ahead and give it a full test call. I'm going to ask it a few FAQs based on the knowledge base that we have uploaded here. Then I'm going to ask it to book a consultation, and then I'm going to ask it to book a claim discussion. So let's get straight into it. But before I do that, I'm just going to clear all of the bookings from here, just so there are no more overlaps.
Hey there, this is Nick from DriverSure Auto Insurance. How can I help today?
Yeah, hey Nick. So I just had a curious question today. I was just wondering where you are founded.
Great question. DriveSure Auto Insurance was founded in 1998 in Portland, Oregon. We focus exclusively on personal auto coverage across the United States. Would you like help with anything else today? Or want to book a quick consultation to review your coverage?
So I was wondering, what is the policy around accident forgiveness? Because I'm someone who has a lot of accidents, so I just want to make sure that this is the right step for me.
Totally understand wanting peace of mind. Accident forgiveness is an optional add-on that helps keep your rate from going up after your first at-fault accident. Eligibility and pricing can vary by state and your recent driving history. It usually applies to just the first incident in a set period and does not waive serious violations or multiple accidents. If you'd like, I can set up a 45-minute consultation to review your eligibility and costs. Would you like me to check available times?
Let's go ahead and book a consultation. Let's do one maybe tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Good news, tomorrow at 5 p.m. is open. Shall I go ahead and reserve that 45-minute consultation for you? If yes, what's your full name? After that, I will grab your email and a quick note on what you want to focus on. Accident forgiveness and rate stability.
Yeah, so my email is azim@gmail.com. What other details were you asking for?
No problem, I can take your email in a moment. First, would you like me to lock in tomorrow at 5 p.m.? If so, what's your full name? After that, I will confirm your email and add a brief note that you want to review accident forgiveness and ways to keep rates stable.
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, my name is Azim Kodarov.
Great, thanks Azim Kodarov. I'll lock in tomorrow at 5 p.m. Could you confirm your email is azim@gmail.com? Also, I'll note you want to review accident forgiveness and keeping rates stable. Anything else you want us to focus on?
No, that sounds correct.
All set. Your 45-minute consultation is booked for tomorrow at 5 p.m. We have your name as Azim Kodarov and email as azim@gmail.com with notes to discuss accident forgiveness and keeping rates stable. Can I help you with anything else right now?
No, thank you. Bye, Nick. Thank you. So as you can see there, it went ahead and booked my driver shirt consultation. So from 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. So that booking looks good. And if you heard the FAQs that I was asking it correctly answered all of my questions, when they were founded, their headquarters, and it gave me correct information on their policies. So I hope building this agent was actually an enjoyable experience on how to build out voice agents, how they work, and really how effective they can be in just a matter of an hour or two after starting to create them from scratch. But now let's actually go ahead and examine the return on investment these voice agents can provide, why they're so powerful, and the many benefits that come from them. So first of all, let's just do a quick overview of a traditional model versus a voice agent model. See, with human agents, it's usually one agent that handles a call at a time. They're limited to 8-hour shifts with breaks, during which even more people can call. And the average cost is usually anywhere from $20 to $25 per hour. So on average, that is close to $50,000 per year. And this requires ongoing training, management, and sick days. And even though this is a very repetitive task, it's very important and costly, which is what brings me to the voice agent model. Now this can handle up to 10 calls at a time. Realistically, it usually handles around 3 to 5 in my experience. It operates every second a business exists, and it costs around 10 cents per minute, which is $6 an hour, or basically 4 times less than a human. This also means that there are instant responses with no hold times, and that humans start doing something more productive, and they're doing less repetitive tasks, meaning that they're actually more fulfilled at their job. And even if businesses aren't looking to get a voice agent that's 24/7, I've personally deployed voice agents for after hours use cases, and the impact there is still massive because people are often calling after hours when they get off work and oftentimes don't receive the help that they deserve. And so if we look at the actual statistics and the return on investment that you get from this, 4 human agents on average will cost you $768 per day, whereas one voice agent for its 8 hours would cost you $48. Now it's important to note that the voice agent might be working for more than 8 hours, but it only requires money when it's actually talking to people, and not just when it's deployed. So that leads to over 6 figures in savings. This is something I've personally seen and helped businesses accomplish. And over time, the impact is just absolutely massive. So with this calculation, one voice agent could cost you $12,000 per year to maintain, whereas 4 human agents would cost you $192,000. And for these $192,000, you could actually be paying people to do more productive work, which is really the point of voice AI, just to make businesses more efficient and not spend time on those repetitive tasks. And so by this point, I've gone ahead and designed 2 paths for you, depending on if you're a business owner or an AI builder or agency owner. I'm offering this so you can have a smoother journey into voice AI and are already equipped with all of the knowledge and implementation tactics you need to succeed. Starting with the business owners, if you're a business owner, we're offering the first 3 people to go ahead and book a call with us, an AI transformation audit where we go deep into your business, analyze key opportunities for ROI, and map out a 90-day strategy that you can use to make your business more productive and profitable. And if you're an AI builder or agency owner, I have my Voice AI Academy school community. In the free community, I already offer a full tech course where you're going to build and sell AI voice agents. And besides that, I'm going to give you the basic lead generation frameworks that actually work when you're just starting out to get your first client and help you start making money with voice agents in the simplest way possible. I'm going to have an accelerator plan coming. How soon it comes out depends on you and how soon you're willing to take action. It's going to have a full cold email course, a content growth course, private one-on-one calls with me, client handoff, advanced outreach systems. I'm going to stop there to prevent myself from talking too long. But you get the point. The accelerator community is coming soon. But even right now, you can go ahead and take advantage of what I have in there. The link for the school community will be in the description. And all of the resources I mentioned in this video will also be located in the school community for completely free, so you can go ahead and access them. As I mentioned, our school community is already at over 600 members, and new people like you are constantly joining every day. So if you're looking to join, the link is in the description. But even if you're not, the very least I can ask you to do is to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out and positions me as a better channel for the algorithm, which really helps me grow further. But besides that, I thank you for watching this video all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.